Table for two. Okay, so last week we had the reserve signs. Thanks for playing along. And in the future, if there are some reserve signs, they probably will be people reserving the seats. But yeah, that was fun to play with that and to work with that and keeping in that same veins. Frequently, the reserve sign is sitting on a table for two. And as I was thinking about this table for two, I was thinking about how intimate it is when you're having dinner, just the two of us, just the two of us. You can make it if we try. One-on-one, great conversation. Great way to go. So I wanted to talk about this idea of two, and what I'm calling the confusion of duality. You know, we hear a lot of talk in religious science circles and some of our jargon around duality. But you know, I see duality as really the experience of unity multiplied, not as individual things. And I just want to spend some time with that. I see the duality as a complement. And then looking at the word complement, I got, okay, there's complement and there's complement. There's two of them. You know, there's like I compliment somebody, nice shirt, but then there's compliment with the E and there's compliment with the I. So I went to look at some of the history of that for a little bit. And in looking at the complement with the I, it's the actually kind of the newer of the words in our English language. It comes from it's a derivative of a Spanish word, got into the English language around 1600. Now, don't blow me up if I get this wrong. Cumplimiento. Complimiento, compliment. It's to praise or to give adoration to someone. But the one that I really want to spend some time with today is the complement, the older word, the word that really works with completing things. That your eyes complement that shirt, or that shirt complements your eyes, or what's another one? Oh, wine complements a good meal, or grapes complement cereal. As we saw last week. Depending on no matter how you cut them, if you slice them, dice them long way or short way, they're really good in your cereal. You could. And then you got juice. Yeah. And then, of course, there's the complementary idea, too, with the I, complementary, as in something is free. And so this one got me to thinking and twisting words around a little bit. And so how does this work now? So if you get something free, a complimentary drink, that's a good compliment to a delayed flight. Get it? It like completes the idea behind a delayed flight. So that's both compliments in the same sentence. Scores for that, even if it's on my own scoreboard. Fine, whatever. It's kind of like, you know, there's another word, tangent coming. That's like another word that gets me, and that's cleave. You ever think of that one? Like you can cleave to something, but then you cleave something. How did we get these words like this? And that one's spelled exactly the same way. At least compliment has an I and an E, so you can figure out which one it is. So how to use the right one. If it's the E, it's complete. If it's the I, it's hey, you look good. There you go. That's your grammar for today. Your grammar for today. So let's talk a little bit about this. Back to the duality thing, though, and this power. There's such a power in this thing called two-ness. I'm going to make up a new word called two-ness. And going back to the idea of complementary, we think of things as being opposites. Like up is opposite of down, and left is opposite of right, and north is opposite of south. But rather those being polar opposites, I like to think of them as one of my dear teachers, Ruth. Thank you, Ruth Collins, for being here today from Founders. It's so interesting that you're here today from Founders because I've got a Dr. Chang quote in my talk today. And I'm talking about his idea that he always gave me, this idea of complementary opposites. Complementary opposites. You see, these are things that complete something in their expression. You see, in directions, you need the left and the right and the north and the south to have it be a whole idea. So this idea that things sometimes seem as polar opposites really are a part of duality acting in multiplicity. And that is a religious science principle. You see, we believe there is one life, one mind, that is not diminished. God is not diminished by all the variations that God expresses. It's called multiplicity, not individualization. It's individualized from the one. You see? And so when we go to our table for two, we're really the one going back to the one, completing the whole, completing the process. And it's all over the literature, all over the ancient speaking. The Father and I are one. That's what Jesus said all the time. The Father and I are one. It's not me that does the work. It's the Father within me that does the works. And so it's not us that does the work. It's the power within us that does the work. And the great thing about that, from my perspective, because to tell you the truth, as hard as I work and as much as I enjoy working, I'm kind of lazy. You know, like I read about 12 books at a time, but I never finish any of them. I just like to read. I just like to look through the good stuff and then throw the rest away. A great way to read a good book is to what a friend of mine talked about in school. They call it culling the fish. You take the book and you read the table of contents and you see what looks interesting to you. Oh, I like that. I like that. I like that. Then you go back to the index and you go through the index and you look at subject matters that look nice. Put a little dot, little dot, little dot. And then if you just read that stuff and read the index stuff, you've read enough of the book. You can tell anybody anything about the book better than Cliff Notes, right? If you're in school, that's a great one to use. Anybody that's in school, all you adult learners going back to get your degree because you finally figured out that you need to go to school like I did, that's a great way to get through all those books. Cull the fish. Love and law. That's another one of those complementary wholenesses of the co-creative process that we work through. Love and law. You see, this idea of enhancing by contrast is another thing that happens with complementary opposites. This fascinated me on the color wheel. That's where this complementary opposites comes from, on the color wheel. Like red is opposite of green. They go really well together. I guess that explains Christmas. There's a lot of red and green around Christmas time. Purple and yellow, or slightly off, gold. That explains the popularity of the Lakers. It's not Kobe Bryant. It's the complementary opposite colors. Now, I don't know what happened with the Broncos with the blue and the orange, and what was up with them last week with those popsicle orange crush uniforms they were wearing. Did anybody watch that game? It was crazy. But anyway, they do the same thing, complementary opposites, blue and orange. This whole idea of coming together into this unitary experience of life is really something to watch and to experience. I had the beautiful experience of that yesterday. I performed a wedding. And what an opportunity it is to see when you take another into your life and create a third or a one through that process. It was absolutely special to be a part of that. And in many ways, when we go to our table for two, when we go to that which is within us, to the divine, I'm really talking about what Jesus talked about a little bit when he says, go into your Father's closet in secret and pray. Your secret closet is the mind, is their space within. It's that gap awareness place that we go to. And when we can go to that space, we are in some form or fashion actually wedding ourselves to the one. We're marrying Spirit as Spirit has married us. And in that space, we get more power, we get more strength in our lives. It's what the ancients have said for a long time. In Hindu, what do they say? Tat tavam asi. Tat tavam asi. Thou art that. Or as some of the other ancients would say, that which I am, thou art, and that which thou art, I am. You see, it's the I am that we're getting to. We're getting to that space. Dr. Holmes says that everything that is takes place within one infinite self, which is undivided and individualized, but which creates this vast multiplication of itself, this great variation. We are that great variation. When we go to our table for two, we're going back into the oneness. We're going back to the singularity that we become undivided from and indivisible from. We can never be separate from that which we are. That which they are, thou art, and I am that as well. And I love the idea of when you're saying I am, and you follow it with whatever it is, it describes who we are in so many ways. I am, and then what follows describes who we are. But it starts with I am. And that goes back to what Moses was told. Who am I talking to? Who's this burning bush talking to me? I am that I am. Oh, thanks a lot. Now you knew. But that's who we are. That's where we come from. And that's what we get to do when we go back to the one and wed ourselves to the divine. And the beautiful thing about having time, and that's the invitation this week, to spend time at your table for two, to spend time at that space of the divine, to just let yourself bathe in the depth of who and what you really are, you see, so that you can know, so you can go in and feel the always giving presence and the dependability of Spirit. It's as dependable as the sunrise and the sunset, as the waves crashing on the shore. Thank you for that scene last week of being at the ocean. That was so wonderful. Evelyn was there watching the waves crash at the shore. Always dependable. As regular as the warmth that you feel when you see a baby smile. This wedding yesterday, what was going on in the water? 3 pregnant ladies and 4 babies under 2 months old. That was a lot of youth there. But everybody was so happy. There's like, oh, look at the... There's something that happens to your whole language. You don't even know how to talk anymore when you see these things. You look at them like, oh, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. Such joy and satisfaction in the regularity of life. And there's also joy and satisfaction as we come to understand and to know that regularity of the divine, the self-givingness of spirit is always available to us on like standby and in reserve, to go back to last week. And all we need to do is to take a seat at our table for 2 and know that the other partner there is the divine, waiting with the gift of joy, of satisfaction, of completion, of inspiration, of knowledge, of innovation, of creativity, of whatever it is. The supply and the substance of this expanding universe is always there for you to partake in it. And how often do we try to do it all on our own? And then you end up tired. If you ever wonder why you're tired, you might be doing too much on your own. Just sit back and allow and listen, and the universe will kind of fall into place for you. And I know this sounds like, what do you mean? I do have to get to work. Yeah, you will have to get to work. God will not bake the cookies. That's true. At the same time, though, God will give you the recipe. So the baking of the cookies is not that hard. When I worked at the World Ministry of Prayer, I loved doing that. But there were times that I would leave that World Ministry of Prayer, and I'm so confident in the power of Spirit to work through the treatment that we do, through knowing the treatment work that we do through prayer. I'm so confident in that when I was praying, it didn't seem like I was doing anything. I just opened up, and the words would just come, and the Spirit would just speak to me, and boom, it was done. And other friends of mine that worked there would leave at the end of the day and go, I am so exhausted. And sometimes I would overhear in the next cubicle, and I could hear them, and I would see them writing down what they were going to say. They were so into doing it themselves that it wore them out, you see. If we can, when Patrick is beating up on those other guys on the tennis court, as long as he's not thinking about trying to beat them, as long as he's just like in the motion with the ball, he's winning. But as soon as he starts thinking, oh gosh, this guy's a little taller than me, he's a little stronger than me, how am I going to make it? He leans to the left, I better hit to the right. Those are the games he's not going to win. Am I right or wrong? But when he's in the flow of it, just walk, 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 you know? When Alberto is playing up here, you see how his eyes close? He never even looks at anything. How can you do that? How can all those fingers move like that? Because he's in the flow, you know? This is what I'm talking about the effortlessness that goes on in life that's available to us. I'm not saying that it's not hard. It takes a lot of practice to get to that space. But we get to practice too. That's why we call it practitioner. We get to practice this teaching on a regular basis. And one of the ways we can practice it is to sit down at that table for 2 and know the divine is on the other side and just allow. Just surrender to the oneness that is there and go back to the source and ask with gratitude and be ready to receive. I had the occasion this week to read the 23rd Psalm at a ceremony that I participated in. And one of the lines in the 23rd Psalm is, you prepare a table before me in the presence of thine enemies. It really sat with me. In the presence of thine enemies, you, being Spirit, God, prepares a table before me. To set this table out before me. In the presence of my enemies. What is that? My enemies. Right? The negative mental equivalents, enemies. The negative thoughts that are flowing through my mind. If I can go to the complementary ideas and let go of the negative ideas, the table is already set before me. Don't bring my trash. You know, don't bring that to the table. Because see, the rest of it goes, you anoint my head with oil. You are pouring out the Spirit of divine love upon me. That's what anointing my head with oil is. The oil and the anointing is the pouring out of Spirit, the pouring out of divine love. And then when that happens, my cup runneth over. The overrunning cup is the consciousness of the eternal life. My cup is running over. And then what happens when your cup runs over? Goodness and mercy follows you for all the days of your life, and you dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What a beautiful experience we can have. And it comes from just recognizing that there's this place that we can go. There's this table where we can sit, where we will know. Oh, here's my Dr. Chang quote. Ruth, make sure you tell him I use this in honor of you being here. There is the power of one. The power of one springs from the knowledge that the entire universe is spiritual. Remember what I said? Everything is sacred. The entire universe is spiritual and is therefore one. And as one, it is self-generating, self-sustaining, and self-organizing. That's a beautiful idea, that the one is so excited about its experience of creating life that it just keeps generating good. It keeps sustaining the good, and it keeps organizing the good into your life while you depend upon that. See, it's when we get off and try and do it all on our own as if we're separate from something, which we are not. We are not. Even this morning, we were a little bit late this morning, driving just a little bit fast, and I had to let it go and just relax. And the minute I let it go and relaxed, the guy stepped on the gas in front of me in the carpool lane. I'm like, why are you driving in the carpool lane at 68 miles an hour, dude? It's the carpool lane. And I went, okay, just let it go. Let it go. And the self-organizing, self-generating, self-organizing, giving, sustaining universe pushed on that guy's right foot, and he started going 85. And I was like, yes, God! You know? That's how this stuff works. When you let go, it comes. It's weird how that happens. I started tithing a bigger amount of tithe to the church, and I didn't think I could do it. I was like, oh, but I really want everybody else to tithe. I'm going to tithe a little more. And I could not explain it. Jobs started showing up. The finances got together. It helps when you're living with a person who has got a bookkeeping business. That is really awesome. I got the most wonderful spending plan. Oh, here's a tip for you. Don't call it a budget. Call it a spending plan. See, a budget is limiting. It's like, I don't have enough, I'm on a budget. No, we got plenty because we're on a spending plan. We like to spend, and here's our plan for it. Oh, we can only spend that much? Well, at least we're spending, you know. That's how that works. It's really, thank you, baby. Yeah, it is good, isn't it? Yeah, she's smart. Mm-hmm. The self-organizing, self-generating universe. But then there is the challenge. There's always a challenge. It's all that stuff, all the chatter, all the words, all the busyness, all the negative thoughts, the subject to the senses, what the mind is telling me, what the mind was telling me the guy was going too slow. But, the reality was I was speeding. He needed to be slowing me down, So that's the bigger picture here. We got to keep these things, but the brain just wants to create the way it does. Deepak Chopra says, each person is tied to the world by 1,000 invisible threads of mental activity, time, place, identity, and all the past experiences. All this stuff we've been through just hooks us into the planet, and it makes it hard for us. And sometimes, even when we know, there was this, let me see if I can remember the story right. There's a story I want to tell you. Okay, so this young guy, he's living his life, and he's kind of bored, and he's not doing that well with his life, and he wants to get rid of the negative stuff. He wants to break those little invisible threads of time, place, identity, and all his past experiences, and he decides what he would do to get rid of his suffering is to go and live at a monastery, but he realizes that maybe he doesn't have the stick-to-itiveness and the perseverance to do what he needs to do, and he goes to the abbot, and he says, I really admire this aesthetic life you have and this peace that I feel in this building, and I'm just wondering, is there a shortcut? And he says, well, yeah, there could be a shortcut. Tell me, what have you liked to do in your life? He says, well, really didn't have to do very much. My dad was rich, and I just really basically, I sat around and I played chess. That was about the only thing I ever did really a lot of. He says, oh, okay, all right. So the abbot calls a monk to bring his chessboard in, and he calls in another monk to bring in the sharpest sword they have. And then he tells the young guy, And the monk, he says to the monk, you have been loyal to me. You have been a disciple. And I honor that, and I ask you now to continue to be faithful and to honor me by playing chess with this young man. Now, if you lose, I will take this sword and I will cut off your head. Then he says to the young man, if you lose, I will take the sword and I will cut off your head. And the two guys look at the abbot and they're like, but they could tell he really meant it. So they begin to play. And the young man's sweating. He's like, oh my God. And he's playing and he's winning. And he's really doing really well at it. And he kind of looks over at the monk, and you can see that the monk is getting a little, and he looks at his face, and he sees in his face the years of meditation and the years of study and the years of sacrifice to get to the place of exalted living that he's gotten to. And he makes a blunder and another blunder and another blunder on purpose until finally the abbot just knocks the board over and he says, enough, there will be no beheading today. And he says, but he says to the young man, you see, you figured it out. You figured out the shortcut. The shortcut is concentration and compassion. Concentration and compassion. He understood how to break the thread of time, place, and identity. To know that there's one. See, he realized that that guy and his life and that life were valuable lives. And so he figured even to give my life for the value of this other person's life. It's a powerful experience when compassion. And when you go into that space of oneness, when you sit at your table for two and you recognize that everything is sacred, you suddenly do have this newer compassion for all that is living. And you begin to live your life in a more open-hearted, open-minded way, like the young man did. Ernest Holmes says, we will starve our highest nature by giving living quarters to negative thoughts, whereas thoughts of the supremacy and the allness of mind will nourish and exalt us. When that young man got to that positive thought about how life is and just recognized the oneness and the allness of life, he was nourished and he was exalted and he was rewarded, and both guys survived. When we can break those invisible threads, when we can silence the negative thinking, open up our hearts and live from a place of compassion, we become more of service to the world and to our humankind, to our fellow man, which is definitely something we could do a lot more of in this time, in this space. So I invite you to take a seat this week at your table, to recognize that all are divine, not some are divine, and that God is always accessible to each and every one of us. Dr. Holmes says that no man will ever enter the kingdom of heaven by proxy, but can only enter by making his unity with good, by sitting at our table for two and unifying with the good that is already within us. The journey is not that long. It's about from here to here, but oh my God, it can take a long time to get there. But I'm giving you a shortcut, and it's not going to require a sword slashing. You just sit at your table in a deep sense of meditative spirit and feel and open and renew and realize. I think Deepak Chopra says it really well, as I want to close up with this when he says, if someone asks, who are you? Every answer is misleading except I am. When you think about who you really are, you are that spirit expressing, individualized, as Cheryl, as Paulette, as Gray, as Bruce, as Saul, as Peter too. Love you, my brother. And where's Jeff? And as Jeff. Welcome home. Welcome back. Yeah. So, take a seat at your table and introduce yourself as I am to I am, and be as one. And so it is. So here we are with the E. Here we go. I am begins the story of my relationship to that two is complementary of the one. All right. It is our time for prayer. And if I could get Patty to bring me the prayer box. Wonderful. What? Oh, that's a nice answer. I like that answer better, but apparently the practitioners already grabbed them. I will pray over the feeling tone of them. Beautiful. But this is for your prayers, and it sits in the lobby, and we do welcome you to put them in because our practitioners love to pray over our prayers. I release, I let go. Let's do that now together. All right? So I invite you to go within and recognize that there may be, I don't know, whatever it is in your life. If there's some of those negative thoughts, if some of those threads are still tied to your experience of life, this is an opportunity to snip the thread right now in this opportunity, in this moment of prayer. So hold that idea in mind. Or if it's someone that you know that is going through a particular situation, let's bring that person, think of the situation. Okay, and now that's what Dr. Holmes says. First, we identify the condition, and then we move from the condition into a spiritual principle. So if it's illness, we know it's wholeness. If it's lack, we know it's infinite abundance and prosperity. Whatever it is, we can go to the complementary opposite of that and bring that into this moment of prayer together by recognizing that there is one life. That life is God. That life is my life, and it is the life of every person here now. It shows up as love and abundance and prosperity and good, harmony and peace and wholeness. For each and every person here, at the center of their being, there are these divine principles that sometimes get pressed down by the magnitude of life. We're not denying that things come up that hurt, that people leave this plane of existence, that people suffer illnesses, that people have backfalling opportunities where they maybe lose a job or they don't have enough money to pay a bill. These are the realities of life, absolutely so. But we also know that there is this divine principle that we can always turn to that comes up as limitless abundance and infinite prosperity and right action and divine guidance, leading us to the opportunity to move past what seems to be limited into a larger experience of life. So we activate that movement right now through that prayer. We're not denying that the things happen. We're just affirming that we're done with that activity of life and we're moving into a more full, joyous experience of life. Harmony, peace, wholeness, right action, divine guidance, infinite opportunities, love, joy, peace. So if you're feeling lifted by those principles, if you're feeling lifted by those divine aspects of spirit, then say thank you for the presence of them. Thank you for the joy of them. Thank you for the knowing that we can always turn within and find at our source that peace that passes all understanding. And through this moment of prayer, we bring that out into the world to be the experience of our own lives or anyone that we're holding in mind right now. And with a deep sense of gratitude, I release this prayer of intention into a manifestation of joy and happiness, pleasures and treasures for all. And we let it be. And so it is. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for allowing.